Hi everyone. I will give you a few more moments. I must tell you, I spoke in this room a few times, and this is like one of the most difficult rooms to speak in, because if there is a single person talking aside from the speaker here, like it totally breaks the whole presentation. So seriously, like this is the most difficult room that I have ever had a chance to speak in. Anyway, my name is Tomek. There was a time when I was into crypto, and there was a time when I traveled all around the world to visit hackathons, to visit conferences, to pitch my project, to be a judge in the projects, and whatnot. And that's why I hope I'm qualified to give you a quick overview of what to do during the pitches and what not to do. When it comes to hackathons, I've been on a few of those. So I've been to ETH San Francisco, I think, ETH Denver a few times. That's quite fun. ETH Berlin, ETHWarsaw, yes, the first one, I think I've been there, and ETH Singapore. So these were the hackathons that I've participated when it comes to Ethereum. So I got a chance to travel around the world and just see pitches. And I must tell you, there is only a single pitch that I remember out of all of the pitches that I ever heard. And that was the pitch of Remco from 2018 in ETH Denver. And that's quite amazing if you think about it. You know, like listening to only one and remembering only one after some time. And I wonder, like, what did Remco do so well that other people usually don't do? That was the question. And sorry, I'm a little bit distracted because if anyone is speaking here in the room, it seriously can be heard. Guys, the guy in the glasses, yes, that's you. Like we can seriously hear, like it's super distracting if anyone speaks here. Yeah, I know, it's terrible. Okay? Yeah, thanks a lot. All right, so ETH Denver, Remco, and why was his presentation memorable? He prepared a smart contract profiler. So his tool, what it did was it analyzed smart contracts line by line and checked out how much money is spent on each single line. And it did a chart, so it showed, you know, next to each line how much money was spent, and that's what he did. The reason his presentation was memorable was that he managed to narrow it down, this super complex thing, to just a few simple words, and explained his pitch well. And then in the end, he gave some examples of real contracts, and then in the end, he had a Lambo mode where he converted all the prices or all the money that was spent on lines of the contracts into Lamborghinis and showed that. And that was quite hilarious because we could see on the projection screen that there are Lamborghinis, and we can see how much contract costs measured by that. And that was kind of funny. And I know that it's not funny perhaps now the way I explain it, but that was the memorable presentation that I have seen. That was the most memorable presentation that I have ever seen. Now, it is quite simple to pitch on a hackathon, really. And you talk about what you build, you say what is cool about it, and you make sure that 70% of people understand it. And the reason I say 70% of people and not 100% is that, for every single thing that you do, there will be always people that are not technical enough or from a different subset of a field of blockchain space. So of course, like not everyone will understand. But the important part is that you want to make a presentation that will be understood by most of the audience. So if you are doing something similar, like super specific, you're using, developing some kind of a niche thing on a niche library and whatnot, your job as a presenter, if you want to present well, is to find out what is the metaphor, what is the way to explain it in such a way that people really get it. And you can think of it like kind of like the Star Trek movies or shows. There was always something technical that was, technical explanation, and then there was some kind of a metaphor that allowed people to really grasp what was being said and done, right? Now, it is simple, but now most of the projects fail. And the way the projects fail is that, well, one of the things is the projects talk about the team too much. And that was also mentioned by the first speaker here today. Like when you have just 3 minutes, your goal is not to talk about the team. Like it's not a startup weekend, it's not a business presentation, whatnot, it's a hackathon So your goal is to talk about what you have done. Second thing that people kind of mess up is they talk about what they plan to do and what they failed to do. And I've been in a place where I was on a hackathon, and I kind of, I wanted to do one thing. I spent the whole first day of trying to build something. I failed, and then I delivered just 5% of what I really wanted to deliver, right? And the temptation is to explain all the big vision, all the failures, and what you wanted to build, and then say, oh, but I built just this. Skip it, and do not talk about the things that you didn't manage to build. Just pretend that you wanted to build that in the first place. And I know, again, this may seem like very simple tips, but most of the projects fail in one of those things. That's why we decided to mention them here. Now, another thing is the presentation can be too technical. And we're on a hackathon, so it is normal that people are technical here. But even among the technical people, there are levels of technicality, and you can go way too deep, or you can go way too narrow. And someone, I've built the compilers for smart contracts. I'm super technical, right? But I still fail to understand some of the presentations that are being done on the hackathons because they're too technical and too narrow for me to grasp, right? So try to go a few levels up and try to make people understand. And I managed to build a few algorithms in my life, and they were extremely complex and extremely difficult. But still, I managed to make a 3-minute pitch about how, about something simple and simplify it a lot. So try to simplify. Now, one more thing is that sometimes the pitches are unclear, and that lack of clarity can be like the work. Like sometimes during the pitches, what is not clear is what was being built during the hackathon. And there are two things where it goes wrong sometimes. One thing is, especially for people that are building more like customer-centric things, sometimes they build something and you end up watching the pitch and you don't know if they programmed the thing, if they designed the thing, if they just glued some pieces together. So make sure during your pitch, after you explain what you wanted to do, make sure that people understand what you actually built. So did you program it, or did you design it, or what was that, right? So that's one thing. And then second thing, which is important, and that's a reason of awkwardness a few times, is that some teams didn't specify what was being built on the hackathon. So, let's say that you're using a framework that you developed in your spare time before the hackathon, right? Or sometimes software houses prepare a lot of stuff beforehand and then just do the final touches on the hackathon. And there have been cases where some teams were even disqualified after the fact because someone claimed, oh, we built this, and this, but it turned out that it wasn't exactly built during the hackathon. So make sure that you explain what you actually did and not, like try to not leave room for like misunderstandings here. And then the last thing, which is quite technical, is messing up sound. So if you want to record your presentation, do not mess up the sound. Check out how, what's the best microphone that you might have and use that microphone. And sorry, speaking of the sound, like my throat is killing me, so that's why today I cannot speak that well. Yeah, but make sure that your sound is correct. If you're speaking in person, aside from making sure that your throat works properly, do not speak too fast. Make sure that you are understandable. Don't hold your microphone too far, and stuff like that. No. Sorry. Now, you will have 3 minutes, if I remember correctly, right? Or will it change? Like 3 minutes for the pitch, or 5 minutes, or however much? You will not have enough time. Oh, thanks. Oh. You will have 3 minutes to do the presentation, right? Or 5 minutes. That will be very little time to present whatever you want to present, right? And that requires you to prepare even more. It's more difficult to prepare a 3-minute presentation than half-an-hour presentation. And yeah, what's the difficulty there is that you will be able. 3 minutes gives you enough time to only show one thing and show it well. So there is very little room to like not know what you want to exactly say. So in these 3 minutes, when you start to prepare your presentation, think about what is the single thing that you want people to remember from your pitch. And that, if you manage to make people remember that single thing, then you will succeed. Just like Remco, who presented the Lambo project profiler, and people still remember it after 6 years or whatnot, right? So don't try to give too many details and whatnot. Just make sure that you know like what you want to say, and that one single thing. Second tip is that the project and the pitch go together. What I mean by that is sometimes people just build the project and then afterwards they prepare the pitch. And sure, you can do that, and it's like whatever works. It's a hackathon. It's supposed to be fun, right? Although right now the atmosphere is quite serious, but like it's the hackathon, so it's supposed to be fun. Now, good pitches usually, like they when someone was building the project, they took into consideration the fact that they will have to pitch it afterwards, right? So in case of Remco's speech, like the thing that they did is they fixed it slightly, right? So they added this Lamborghini view of how much was spent just to make the presentation more fun and better, right? And there are sometimes some small things that you can do in your projects that will look good on a pitch and will make the pitch more memorable. If you're more experienced, you can also try to design projects from the ground up, wondering how you will present it to the people. And not only during these 3 minutes, but if you're building any sort of project, you want to have a following, right? So it's not about, like few of us want to build something and just, put it somewhere in the corner and don't have an ambition for anyone to see it, right? So think from the ground up how the project will also be presented, and ask yourself, are there any small things that you could do in the design of your project that would make it more understandable from the ground up? Yeah, like that was the question, what's the one thing that people will remember after the presentation? And I ask myself every single time of that. And the third thing is distillation. So the way I do the pitches, and whenever I have to pitch, is I write out the pitch or outline of the pitch, and then especially with this 3 to 5 minute pitches, I ask myself what still can be removed, and I keep removing things and keep removing all the distractions until my pitch has nothing that could be removed that would not torpedo the meaning of what the pitch is about, right? And this is possibly the most important thing. So there is one thing that you want people to remember after the pitch, and now the question is like, what is distracting, and remove everything that is distracting from your pitch, and just distill, kind of like refactoring of the code. Now, when it comes to in-person pro tips, talk to the audience. Like that's my approach, at least. Not everyone is doing that, but if you have a chance, get familiar with the audience and adjust the presentation slightly, or at least adjust the tone of your voice, adjust slides, adjust anything if you have a chance to the audience, right? From my experience, usually I prepare a presentation in one way, then I go into the room and I see that the audience is totally different, right? And like here, for example, I had to be way more serious because there were people talking in the background, right? So like that's in case of other audiences, like there is the whole room laughing, and just the mood is completely different. So it's nice to know the feeling of the room, and also understand what kinds of people are in the audience, and perhaps you can sometimes adjust slightly your presentation to that. Second thing is eye contact with the audience, and that's one of the things that someone taught me very early on when I was learning how to do public speaking. Like don't be afraid of the stage, don't be shy too much, and if you are panicking or you don't know what to do, just stand here straight and just look at smiling faces in the audience, and just take your time, take a breath or two, and take your time, and it will all be good, right? So that is what you can, like that's worthwhile to do. Slowing down and taking your time. That's one thing that I keep forgetting oftentimes. But really, you do not want to talk too much, especially during the pitch. You do not want to overflow the audience with too much details. You want to convey a certain concept of what you did, certain feeling about what you did, and you want people to remember you. If you talk too much, like it will be just noise, noise, noise. And take your time. You know, remove the words, not speed up to fit all the words inside. I know that I said that, but you know, sometimes it's nice to repeat that you should realize how little you can say in 3 minutes. And now I have a joke I flirt with the audience, but it actually touches upon this subject, slowing down and taking your time. Like the thing is, like doing a pitch is kind of like going on a date, and I think that, you know, regardless of the gender, like one approach of going on a date, and I think very few people have that approach, is you go on a date and you just say, oh, these are my good points, right? These are my bad points, and you know, this is my portfolio, I don't know, of previous projects, these are my reviews, and just overflow with the data, right? Like even if you are a good person, like this approach will not work because it's more about emotions and about things and about understanding and a lot of other things, right? The same goes with pitches, right? It's not about just saying, oh, this, and this. It's more about giving the audience time to understand you, to memorize you, to trust you, and giving your audience time to really get you, all in all, right? So it is a little bit similar like going on a date in that aspect. Don't speak too fast, don't speak too much, and there is only one thing that people will want to remember, or you want people to remember. And that was very quick. Sorry for if it's if there is not perhaps like if it's not enough, but I think that's like those are the few points that I think would make the presentations better. The question is, if you have any questions to me or to anyone else. Okay. It's hard to lose a contact with audience. You just, oh, I understand what you mean. Oh, like you pitch and then you see that everyone is like somewhere else, right? During the pitches, it's not your fault usually. It's the fault of the 20 previous pitches that were boring, right? So the contact was lost already probably, right? So it's a difficult environment, first of all. I would say I usually try to focus on 1 or 2 or 3 people and kind of give it to myself as a challenge to make them look here, right? So just you know, I try to make it more interesting or something like that, and just make it you know, hopefully, you know, bring the attention back. If you lose contact, that again means that you might be talking too fast and you're trying to convey too much of the information, right? So that's the thing. Another thing is using pauses. And you know, today my technique may not be too good because of my throat, but using pauses. The moment there is silence on the stage, it's the moment that people instinctively look at you, right? So if you say just hello, and you give a second to the audience, right? That pause will bring them back to you, right? But the question is like, what will you do with that attention, right? So that's yeah, like that's the challenge. I hope that helps.
I go with something that refers to a topic that I'm familiar with. And it really helps if you have a pet. And if you can like tell it something funny that your pet did, or you have a kid that did something stupid or something. And it just like, it helps to ease the tension. And then it's, last year we hosted ETHWarsaw VC, and I've been sitting for a room for the whole day, and I listened to like 30 pitches. And there was multiple times when the audience was super fed up with everything. The room was poorly AC'd and it was warm and stuffy. And it helps to just show like a little understanding for the people tuning in and say, hey, I know you're super tired. I know you're exhausted. You've listened to a lot of things today. Let's make this fun and quick. So try to go with something that's loosening the mood. But I always refer back to the dogs. I mean, something funny always works to get the attention back up, and then you can slowly tune back into talking about what you're presenting.
All right, any more questions?
What was the most memorable for you pitch you've given, and why?
Oh, the most memorable. I can tell you most stressful ones. So
Yeah.
that was from ETH Singapore, and that was quite fun. I was building a project based on my API of my decompiler, right? And that was quite a cool project. I was quite proud of that. And the pitches were not in front of the stage, which I'm used to, but just private with jurors, right? And I like to think of myself as a person that doesn't get starstruck very easily. So if there's someone important, I don't care, right? I'm myself, right? So I go into the room filled with judges, and it's like 3 judges, and one of them is Vitalik, right? And that was like kind of stressful, because one thing is you pitch to an audience of 100 people, or 1,000 people or whatever, right? But another thing is you pitch like literally standing next to the founder of Ethereum, and you try to pitch your project, right? So that was the most, like the most memorable to me, and like the most difficult, I would say. And what else I could tell you? Yeah, I would say that's possibly like the craziest story that I have when it comes to pitches, right? And yeah, I got stuck, and I got stressed and whatnot. Yeah. Other questions here, or challenges, or any stories that you have?
Is there usually like a queue for pitching? So I want to know, what do you think, which place at queue at the pitching is the best? Because if you pitch the first one, you're like, okay, you don't know what other people do, and the end you're like, the most boring stuff.
The end presentations, like, it's there's no good answers, right? When it comes to judges, they usually have a list of projects anyway, right? So it will not matter that much, because they will just take notes. The second thing is, if you're doing a project and it's like a bigger hackathon, usually your target is like 10% really of the people. You want to make it understandable to 70% of the people, right? But your real target is like 10% of the people that are interested in a similar framework and similar things to you, so that they will come up to you and talk to you afterwards, right? So just, I would say, from that perspective, it also doesn't matter too much, as long as you present well, and if you use a pause and you make it really simple and obvious on what you're doing, right? Like, you will get those people's attention, and they will not miss your project. Now, having said all that, of course, I wouldn't want to go first ever. Like, I would give that privilege to someone else, right? I would probably try to be in the first 25%, so the audience is not tired yet. But I hope I would have some kind of energy and something to reference that happened before me, right? So I would personally prefer that part. But I think anything goes if you have a good presentation.
Just don't go the first after lunch. It just doesn't work. Like, nobody listens. They're like,
oh yeah, like
this one doesn't work. But I think what's also important is that your presentation is going to be reviewed twice. So once when you're presenting, and then once after all the pitches are done and the judges are actually making up their minds. And this is the moment when they're actually gonna, hey, is this project worth it or not? So it's good to make yourself memorable during the pitch, but they will have an option to review your video, your submission after that. They will have an option to take a look at the code after that. So like, I think during the pitch, make yourself memorable, like make yourself stand out in some way, and then it's gonna be easier for them to remember what you actually did. So you're gonna be judged twice. Once when you're presenting, and then after that, after all of the projects go. And we've been judging projects for ETHWarsaw twice already, and we're gonna be doing this again this year. And very, very often, like, we go through for the projects, and it's like, I don't really know what they do. I don't remember what they're doing, and I really need to go deep into that. And you also have the projects that you remember right away. You just know what they do, you know who they are, you don't have any issues recollecting what that team is doing. So try to make sure that you're memorable and that you stand out.
Yeah. Speaking of that, speaking again as a past judge and sitting on that other side, yeah, like, if I do not understand what the people did in the project, then that's like not an official disqualification, but like, I cannot choose that team to win, right? So there have been situations where I've seen projects that seem awesome, but I just don't know which parts were done on the hackathon, which parts were done beforehand, which parts are frameworks and whatnot. So that's why it's important to make it clear what you actually did. And of course, it's important to make people understand what you exactly did, and why it's interesting, why it's special to in some way, and whatnot, right? So these are the things that are very important. All right.
Any more questions? We good? Awesome. Right. Thank you so much. Thank you, Tomek.